So, June. June is Pride Month, a month dedicated to celebrating the LGBTQ plus community. Although I don't do much celebrating myself, I am honestly really glad this month exists, and I am also really glad that it is part of our culture now. Last year, I finally came out as who I really am. A woman. Daniela is my name. And coming out to me was the most special and liberating thing I have ever done in my entire life. It is probably the best decision I've ever took. It's like I said, the best thing that probably has ever happened to me because it allowed me to finally start being happy, to finally regain my self-esteem, to finally come out to the world and express myself and to start living life, I think, the way it was intended. And I didn't realize how miserable I was until I finally came out. Anyone who says coming out is not hard is either one, not part of this community, or two, lives in a very healthy environment in a first world country and they're extremely privileged, because not a lot of people have that privilege to come out and say, oh, it was nothing. It wasn't difficult, it wasn't hard. And I'm super glad for them. I really am. It's just not a lot of us have that same kind of privilege. When I first came out in 2014, late 2014, early 2015 as bisexual, and at the time I was still presenting myself as a man, and that was just so traumatic and depressing for me. It was one of the most depressing times of my life, and I'm only 21, almost 22. So having to come out again, but this time as a woman, as a trans woman, and having to explain the whole concept of being transgender in the first place was extremely not triggering, but something I didn't want it to do. My transition is not by any means over. I'm still in the process of changing my name legally, and I'm still in the process of getting more hormones. It's quite difficult because of the country I live in, and especially because of the city I live in. And I don't know how many of you know, but I plan to move out of my country as soon as I possibly can. But I am changing my name legally. That is in the works. So yeah, like I said, my transition kind of still continues, I hope more things change. And I think everything just is constantly changing, so I don't know if I can really say it's over or it's done. I am certainly on the other side, for a lack of a better word, but like I said, I don't think it's like over per se. And like I said in the beginning, I use that word a lot, I'm sorry. Like I said in the beginning, I don't do much celebrating. I don't usually get involved with the LGBTQ plus community a lot, especially not in my hometown. It's still very conservative, it's still very close-minded, and kind of violent to a certain degree. I don't go to parades, I don't usually do anything like that. But instead of going to a parade, and also because coronavirus is still a thing right now, I decided to make this video now that I feel more comfortable with myself, sharing all of these things with you all. And I don't know, it's just kind of this tiny, how do I explain it, this tiny way of celebrating Pride in my channel. Other years I just simply do a drawing or I take a photograph and I post it on my social media accounts. Actually, last year I didn't do anything. I just wrote something on my personal diary, and that was just pretty much it. So I decided to make this video this particular year, mostly because my self-esteem is just, now it's back. And I don't know, I just consider myself a happier person, and I just wanted to make this video. I don't really need a reason to justify it, but if I were to need a reason, it would be Pride Month, I suppose. Just wanting to kind of celebrate to a certain extent. Aside from that little blog or intro that I made, I also wanted to take a different look or another look at the video I did last year about LGBT representation in video games. Things have changed, obviously. I present myself to the world differently and I've come to terms with my sexuality as well. So I just wanted to take another look at that video, I suppose, as a way to make things special. And we're gonna switch to the usual format, to the usual video format, which is just me talking over some footage true to the original video. So yeah, let's get into that. Before we move on to the general rambling, I would like to recommend a few games and movies that I think you all can enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and recommend The Red Strings Club, Wheels of Aurelia, One Night Hot Springs, and Gone Home. Every single one of them covers different themes, and every single one of them has different gameplay and of course a very different story. And what I like is that all of the stories are really great, and the way they implement the LGBTQ plus narrative is really nice. And of course I am going to recommend the classics, which are Night in the Woods, Life is Strange, and of course its sequel, Life is Strange Before the Storm. You all know I love cinema, so I'm gonna go ahead and recommend some movies and series as well. I'm gonna start with Brokeback Mountain, a hidden gem that showcases the struggles of being forced to live inside a metaphorical cage thanks to society. It covers a gay romance, and in my opinion, is a really nice study of toxic masculinity. Tangerine, I think it showcases a daily life, and it is very mature and down to earth, and I think it portrays what it's like living as a young trans person inside a very specific area. The Danish Girl as well, a story of a trans woman in the old world, and a movie I can't watch without crying and feeling sick to my stomach. A more recent iteration is I Care a Lot, a movie that is entertaining, explores femininity, and has a strong social commentary. And The Dance of the 41st, also known as El Baile de los 41, a look at gender expression, sexuality, and machismo, as well as homophobia and punishment in the old history of my country. And finally, I would like to recommend the series Feel Good, one of the best representations of a relationship I have ever seen in a long time. When I say before we move on to the general rambling, it is kind of general rambling. It's just me sharing my thoughts and opinions after rewatching my old video. So I would like to share with you all a few notes on my script that I think are very important to the video. I say that people change opinions, and of course perception varies over time, and I want to share that being trans, specifically a trans woman, helped me internalize more feminist ideas, although I don't know if I feel comfortable in the movement in the first place, especially because of radical feminism and TERFs. TERFs exist, and sadly they make existing in a movement like that quite unnerving.
It's Arthur Morgan here. Be beautiful to each other, and don't forget, TERFs ain't got no friends. Trans people are people. Be beautiful to each other. You'll be all right.
And I would like to ask the question again. Why it matters that we have representation in media, especially in video games? Well, here's why. Video games have become the most relevant, important, and popular type of media, and it will be relevant to the newer generations, arguably more than it was for us. Arguably, not as much, because it will be perceived as normal, and they would not have experienced a change in the market or in the art like we did. I went from playing Halo 2 on my old Xbox and Killing Floor 1 on my old PC to now playing newer titles and online experiences that I never would have imagined when I was young. Going back to its importance, it becomes a place of resistance, honestly, and meaning, as well as refuge, because it creates a community where we see certain things portrayed, where we feel like we belong. It's something we can identify with, and that's why I believe it's important and meaningful. I didn't grow up with such a thing, and I can only hope my kids do. Back to the rambling. So this is the part where I took another look at my LGBT representation in video games video, which is currently my most popular video in my channel. And after taking a look, I wrote a somewhat comprehensible script. And well, the idea of this whole portion is obviously to take a look at this video again and see how my opinions have changed. And well, people change opinions all the time. So what has changed with me? Well, I started my transition, like I said, last year, and I've come to terms with my asexuality. And the other thing that has kind of shaped my views or my opinions is that I've met way more people in the LGBTQ plus community, and I've been exposed to way more ideas and points of view. So I am extremely grateful for that. So what has changed in my opinion when it comes to representation? I still stand with most of the things that I said, although I do think we need better representation when it comes to asexual, transgender, and non-binary characters. It's not necessary just saying it will be great. This change will come slowly, but it will come, and I am positive, and I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. Newer games are doing representation well, so I can only have high hopes. I want to reinforce that I hope good writers get involved in the industry. It will be really cool to see more writers who handle LGBTQ plus characters well, since basically all boils down to good writing with characters. And I do have a few examples for you of newer games in just a minute. Going back to what I was saying, obviously a character being trans or non-binary doesn't mean that that's all they have going for. This is something that has been very present in me since I started my transition. The fact that I'm trans doesn't represent me 100%. I think my art, my personality should still be the highlight of my persona, and I hope thoughts like this translate to future characters. That's something that I hope LGBTQ plus and non-LGBTQ plus people understand, and everyone in general who pretends to write a character or a story. At the beginning of the video, I was mentioning forced representation or shoving something down someone's throat. That sounds extremely out of context. But going back to what I say, does forced representation exist? No, it comes down to the writing board. Writing is extremely important in games. It's a strong department, like I've said in many of my videos. Writing something that's so poorly structured and so poorly phrased can bring down an entire game. I don't know about you, but I think that's a fact. If your game includes a story, just put effort into that. Some games even mix the storytelling with the gameplay, and if it is done well, it's just so pleasant to see that, to experience that. Others stand on its own thanks to a well-written story. Some of my favorite games are so popular just because of the story. No one criticizes the gameplay because everyone clearly sees that the story is the priority and everything else comes second. Someone in the comment section mentioned that if the dialogue is the same regardless of your gender, meaning characters use they them pronouns, is good and inclusive overall, but they mentioned that it is also pointless to a certain extent. That argument has some merit. I hadn't really thought about that entirely, but it does devaluate my opinion on a few games. Like Brave, for example, makes picking Morgan's gender kind of pointless. Morgan is a gender neutral name, but nothing in the story changes much if you pick female over male, for example. So I think it is something to at least keep in mind. In other more modern instances, this is merely an act of respect towards people's manners, if you will. And people I've met argue that it's not something worth commending, for example, in media, but I humbly disagree, as I think it is something very valuable and important, and I'm glad it's something that is just so part of our society now. And with the whole discussion and with the whole Pride Month situation, I wanted to ask the question, is representation over commercialized? It can be. I don't think it's 100%, but it can be. So we have to be kind of careful with that. The reason it can be profitable is because a lot of us have just like lived in the shadows for so long, and it's thanks to just recent times that being open about your gender identity or sexuality is just way more normal than it was, let's say, 10 years ago. I still grew up surrounded by homophobia and transphobia and suffered bullying in school and in my family as well, because I was in a very masculine person growing up, considering of course I was raised a boy. And ironically, I ended up being pushed away by my family for not matching up to their unrealistic and idiotic standards. And I think things get better from now on. I don't think it's gonna go back to how it was like 10 years ago. Like I was saying, we're making progress in society, and I think that's great. But that, on the other hand, gives corporations more ground to cover. Many people call this like pride capitalism or something. And during Pride Month, corporations take advantage to sell pride themed things. If you're part of the community, you already know that, and if you're not, I think you know this as well. It's a huge meme to a certain extent. We got cookies and overpriced underwear, which I was gifted, by the way, for the sole reason it was pride theme, and it's still a gift, and I'm grateful for it though. And I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of cute. Like it is kind of hard not to fall for all of this. Well, sometimes it can be like just plain ridiculous. I think some other times the marketing decisions are just so well thought that we end up falling for a lot of the pride themed capitalism I was mentioning. They aim directly to our hearts, and it's just so hard to dodge the bullet. It's a sensitive topic, and they know it, and we know it, and sometimes it just happens. So I guess the whole point is just not to fall 100% for it, and I think we're gonna be fine. But I don't think we can really stop the over commercialization or the pride capitalism, as many have referred to it, entirely. It's kind of hard. I think it's a very profitable month for companies, so it's just kind of hard just to stop it. It's what I'm trying to say. And at the beginning of my video, I mentioned I didn't want to seem like I was trying to push something. And I mentioned a little bit earlier that it's not an issue of pushing something. It's more of an issue of that what X thing or Y thing, it's maybe poorly written. So it's not me trying to push something. But I realize something now. And that is, it's my channel. I'll do whatever type of content I want. And I don't have to apologize to anyone for doing what I want or talking about what I want. It was simply a mistake. I was simply so afraid to receive backlash or criticism, and the video did got some homophobic comments, which I quickly deleted. And once again, writer's room, and it's not pushing an agenda. I understand some may disagree, but I also think it's kind of refusing change. It's not pushing an agenda or quote unquote something in your face. Perhaps it's just poorly written, or you're a bigot, either of those. And something I wanted to mention is that I wanted to talk about, but haven't meditated this enough, and that is the amount of negative and toxic attitudes, especially in the gaming community, from casual racism to sexism and transphobia. How many opposing forces really exist in this community? So much negative thoughts, toxic practices, and if you kind of speak against it, you're met with strong dislike and hate, and mostly by loud voices in the community, specifically via YouTube. And it's easy to fall for it, I believe, especially if you're young, or especially if you're alone or struggling with something. But as long as you break from it and realize that nothing is black and white, nothing is so extremist, and that each person deserves to be treated as a human being, only then you can change, only then you can realize how things are. And I'm trying really hard to avoid mentioning names, but I think if you've seen the YouTube gaming scene for a while, I know I have, I think you know who these people are. And like I said, it's just kind of easy if you're young to like kind of fall for their whole idea, for the whole things they talk about. And it's like I said, it's just kind of very present, and it kind of bothers me. It kind of bothers me a lot, and things like this just kind of make me don't want to be like not part of the gaming community. I'm just not as interested. I just kind of focus on my thing. It's kind of video games is something I just simply enjoy, and I do videos about it and things like that. But I don't really get involved in like communities and like talk to people or things like that. For example, when Soccer contacted me to make the interview, and I was exposed to his channel as well, It was kind of because he contacted me, and I kind of wanted to say no because I don't like getting involved in the community. But it turned out really well. He's a really nice guy, and his Discord server is really nice. I like his content, by the way. Just go watch him. I know I talk about him a lot, but he's good. And like I said, it's just like a community I don't feel comfortable getting in contact with. Same with the car community. I like cars, and for me, it's a community that kind of not hate, but I don't like being part of. To me, it's just like I like cars, and that's the end of it. The car community, there's a lot, and I mean a lot of hate. It's just way, way worse than the gaming community to another level. It's incredible. If they don't hate you for who you are, they hate you for the car you drive, for the cars you like, for the way you mod your car, and for the cars you can't even afford. It's just, to me, ridiculous. And there's very little women in the car community, and I know a lot of women who don't really want to get involved in the community either. Just being a trans girl in this community is just so mind-boggling, and jarring. So I don't know, it's just very weird to me. It's a very weird experience to me. I quickly wanted to highlight this comment. Feel free to pause the video because it filled my heart with so much joy when I read it. I just wish you the best in life. Now I wanted to address games, especially The Last of Us 2. I'm not gonna address it directly like I said, but I don't think inclusion specifically ruined the game's narrative. It has problems with pacing and narrative. Ironically, I really like the game. But it has a problem, like I say, with the pacing, the narrative, the delivery. But the inclusion of characters does not ruin the experience. The only argument I do have is that the island section where you go after Lev could have been cut off entirely or handled differently, and it would have worked out really well. Either way, Abby and Lev have stronger moments that develop the relationship, and the island portion, I just feel like it doesn't add that much. And also, I was kind of surprised that the large amount of people who genuinely believe the reason the game was bad was because of diversity. It is truly mind-blowing how ridiculously dumb that is. A few more examples I have for you is Disco Elysium, which it kind of grew to be one of my favorite games of all time. Has a character by the name of Kim. He's your partner from the very beginning of the game, and he's spoilers for Disco Elysium, he's gay. There are only two ways to find out, and obviously it's not all that represents him. He's incredibly smart, competent, has empathy for others, but he also has flaws. For example, Harry can question some of his behavior, and it's kind of cool. And going back to the way you find out, Harry can question his sexuality at a certain point, and I think it's very organic and it's very genuine. Like I was saying in the beginning, there's a point where Harry kind of questions why he's attracted to a male prostitute, and it's just so genuine. It brings back memories to when I was questioning if I was straight many years ago. And what I like about this interaction is the way you find out about Kim's sexuality. It's not a pretty interaction. It is so nosy and unapologetic and rude that makes it very real. There is truly no other way to find out other than just being rude to him. And you're not supposed to find out. If you're trying to be like a good person, make Harry a good person, there's absolutely no way you're gonna find out. The only way you can is if you're rude to him. In real life, this behavior will not be tolerated by anyone, and it translates well into the game. Another example is Borderlands 3, which continues to be extremely good at representation and diversity, including pansexual, non-binary, which is close to non-existent games, characters, and transgender characters. Lorelei was also really well done in my opinion, and I would have mentioned these characters in my previous video. Have I played Borderlands 3 at the time? Also, it's extremely ironic looking at the video again because I focused so much on Maya and I didn't know what was her destiny, so rest in peace Maya, and I realized that now it is very ironic. And last but not least, of course, Sir Hammerlock has a partner, and I like the way they handle their relationship in the main story, in the side quests, and of course they have a whole DLC together. And back to what I was saying at the beginning of the this particular portion was that gay characters are kind of becoming more common, but some of the other characters I was mentioning are close to non-existent, and I hope we get more, well, kind of different narratives focusing on different types of people. But don't get me wrong, I still really, really appreciate and enjoy their relationship because it was handled really, really well. And last, there's a game called Tell Me Why, the newest game by Don't Know, the studio behind Life is Strange. It features a transgender man, and I can't say anything else but that it was good. Also, something worth mentioning is that both Borderlands and Tell Me Why hired actual transgender voice actors, and I think that deserves merit. And also, something I've noticed in games or in forums and by talking to people is that we trans women get more representation than transgender men. So I think it's something worth keeping in mind. I hope to see more of this in the future as well, more transgender men characters or writers or stories or whatever. And of course, a new Life is Strange game is coming out soon, pun definitely not intended, and I'm sure we'll get a good story at least. I didn't enjoy Life is Strange 2, but I'm sure this one's gonna be a bit better, and I'm sure we'll see more LGBTQI plus characters, and it's gonna be an interesting ride. And currently, I was actually working on kind of an essay about how hard it is to fit in a mostly heterosexual cisgender society as trans people. It was gonna be published in a page, I suppose, and I was consulting many trans men, and I was kind of exploring the argument if they think it's easier for them to fit in this society than it is, for example, for us. And so, if any transgender man wants to share his experience in the comments, I think that will be great. Feel welcome to share any of your stories. Really, I'm gonna read every single comment. I promise you that. Damn, that section was long. Sorry about that. I just get really fired up. I just get really emotional with this topic. I just can't help myself. I'm sorry. You know what? No, I'm not sorry. So anyways, this is the end of the section, and we're gonna move to a simple conclusion I recorded a few days ago, but just kind of a way to end the video. So I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say in my video. I hope it was entertaining at the very least. I hope it was fun. I hope you enjoyed it, and it means a lot to me that you're watching. Happy Pride to all my subscribers and to anyone who's watching. If you celebrate Pride, if you're an ally, everyone, happy Pride. And just a quick message to all the trans women out there. I just wanted to say that one, we are women, we deserve respect, and excuse my pupper in the background. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. We are women and we deserve to be happy. We have the same right to exist as anyone else in this world. We have the same right and we deserve to be treated with respect. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, and don't let anyone else prevent you from living the life you want and the life you deserve. Thank you for watching.